Hey brothers, I wanted to make this video about my hair transplant journey because a lot of the videos that I saw on YouTube when I was thinking about making this decision just were simply incomplete and didn't really speak to my experience, nor did they actually give me the full idea of what the procedure would entail, during the procedure, and after the procedure. And so I wanted to make this video for you who may be considering getting a hair transplant or has considered that in the past. A lot of the videos that I saw online were either of kind of Caucasian dudes who had gotten hair transplants in the US. And again, they didn't really talk too much about their journey. And honestly, getting hair transplant in the US is anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000, which no one really has lying around. And it didn't really speak to kind of, again, my experience. Or it was of Desi dudes in India who got it done, maybe in Chandigarh or some other places, and all of those videos were in Hindi, which I only understand every third word. So if you're a Desi dude like me, who maybe is from the States and is visiting India and has close ties, and has been kind of considering getting a hair transplant or wanting to learn more about it, this video is for you. So I'm going to break this video up into two parts. The first part is logistics, what actually happened during the procedure, how it all went down, and how the recovery period is going. And then also the second video is going to be around why I decided to go ahead with the hair transplant procedure in the first place. First, let me give you a snapshot of kind of where I am. Right now, what you see is 3 weeks after the first hair transplant process. So I actually had to do everything in about 4 processes or 4 stages. A little bit of background. Most folks will get a hair transplant maybe just on the front side of their head because they have a receding hairline and they want to regain their hairline, or perhaps on the top part of their head because they have hair in the front and they're losing hair in the middle, or maybe in the back part of their head, which is right where the crown area is, and that's where the bald spot is, so they want to fill that in. For me, I have actually been strutting the Mr. Clean look or Uncle Goons look or the Amrish Puri look for about 7 years. So I started losing my hair, having a receding hairline in my late 20s. And that moment, it was kind of weird because instead of receding in the same direction, I had more hair loss on the right side of my head than on the left side. So slowly, I would kind of do this comb over thing. And then eventually I try to get the kind of gel that would like lift it all up and then hairspray it so it stayed in place in case I was walking down the street on a windy day. I try to avoid going out on days when it was raining. So there were all these little minor adjustments or negotiations that I made just so I can keep my hair looking a certain way. And then about 7 years ago, I was with a partner at the time. She saw me struggling a little bit and feeling self-conscious. And she said, well, you've got a pretty nice shaped head. Why don't you just shave it all off? And since then, I've been sporting the clean shaven head look, right? Now what you see right now is me after 3 weeks. Okay, so let's talk about logistics. As I mentioned, most folks will get either the front part, the top part, or the back part. Each of them might range anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 follicles. And then maybe come back 5, 10, 15 years later and then fill in the rest. For me, since I was strutting the full clean shaven look, they actually transplanted 8,500 follicles. Deep gratitude to Dr. Niraj Goenka at the Goenka Clinic for Hair and Skin. They were actually able to do 8,500 follicles. He had mentioned to me that in his 14 years of performing over 4,000 hair transplant surgeries, this is actually the longest surgery with the most grafts that he's done in such a short period of time. And honestly, their team made it so user-friendly and painless in many ways that I just thought, let me just get it all done within 2 weeks. Day 1, they did the top part of my head, which was about 2,500 to 3,000 follicles, where they pulled hair from my donor area, which is in the back part of my head. Day 2, they did another about 2,500 follicles to 3,000 follicles to the top part of my head, so that's where there was a little bit of blending going on. And they also pulled hair from my donor area, the back of my head, as well as a little bit from my chin. On day 3, which is about 4 days later, they filled in further back parts of my head, taking again hair from the donor area that had grown back and from my chin area. After those first 3 days, I thought, wow, this is amazing that they've been able to do so much. What if they were able to cover the whole part of my bald spot? And so I asked him, what would that take? And again, these guys are miracle workers, the Goenka Clinic for Hair and Skin. They said, let's give it a shot. And he looked at my beard and he looked at some of the hair growth that I had in my donor area, and he said, yeah, we could totally fill that in and do another 1,300 to 1,500 follicles. We're day 1, which is a Monday, 8 to 10 hours. Day 2, which was a Tuesday, 8 to 10 hours. Day 3, which was a Saturday, about 7 hours. And then day 4, which was the following Monday, for about another 7 hours. During the procedure itself, I was actually awake the whole time. Well, actually, I was pain-free the whole time. The only painful part were kind of the anesthesia needles that they put in. So they basically numbed my whole head, and they also numbed my chin if it was on the date that they were pulling hair from my beard. It was so painless that I even fell asleep a couple of times, and they kept on doing their surgeries. The way that I would break down the days is the first half of the day is extraction and cleaning, and the second half is implantation. During the extraction, they extract follicle by follicle with a little machine, and they pull out the hairs, and then they clean every strand so there's no bacteria and that it can be implanted safely. In the second half of the day, they poke a bunch of little holes. They're really small incisions, very painless, and then they implant all the hairs and the follicles that they pulled. Quick note is that the back of the head, the donor area that's in the back of the head, typically has anywhere from 3 to 4 hairs per root, and the beard has typically anywhere from 2 to 3, depending on how thick maybe your beard might be. It's really interesting now, after having gone through this process, one of the things I wished is that maybe that someone had shared with me how painless this whole process is, and that within 6 to 9 months, I'll actually have a full head of hair. And if I was younger, I probably would have done this a lot sooner, especially given the cost here in Surat. About a day or two after the surgery, your head is really sore. And so you've got to take some antibiotics. They give you a spray to make sure that, here are the 2 sprays. They give you a spray of water to make sure that everything is nice and wet. It's kind of like you're planting seeds in your garden. You want to make sure that the soil is nice and moist, so this way the seeds can go in. And then also for cleaning, they gave me a little bit of baby shampoo, where I'd fill up this much with shampoo and the rest with water and a little bit of space, and I'd shake it, and then all the foam is what you kind of put on the grafts themselves, and the rest of it you put where the donor part was, and then use that for cleaning. They also give you an antibiotic or a lotion or a cream called saffromycin, which really expedites the healing. So again, the first couple of days are really uncomfortable, but not that much. Maybe about anywhere from a 2 to a 4 on a 10-point scale. One of the things that I would definitely recommend if you are thinking about getting a hair transplant is one of those travel pillows. So this way it keeps your head stable and it prevents any rubbing of the grafts on your pillow, because without that, it becomes really, really challenging to sleep. In fact, just to take no chances, I didn't really even sleep the first 2 nights because I wanted to be so careful. And then in terms of the recovery, 14 days roughly after that first surgery, you'll go back in and you'll remove all the grafts. I have not yet had my grafts removed. That'll be in just a few days, because they're going to remove them all at the same time. And during that time, you don't want to work out. You don't want to exert yourself. Basically, you don't want to do anything that's going to get your blood pressure going. Secondly, you want to stay out of the sun, so this way your scalp doesn't dry out, and you can't wear any hats or any kind of head coverings. Now, in my case, I felt a little self-conscious about the way that I looked, because it was frankly a little weird looking, and so I actually just didn't even leave the house for the first 2 weeks. And so if you are considering getting something like this done, please give yourself 1 to 2 weeks of recovery and spaciousness, and let the people in your life know that you're going through something big and that you're going to need some time to heal before you re-engage with your day-to-day. And then after the grafts are taken off, about 30 days later, hair begins to start growing tiny bit, and then within 3 months hair does start growing, and within 6 to 9 months your hair begins to grow like natural. I also asked the doctor, uh, are there any touch-ups or any kinds of follow-up procedures or processes that I need to be aware of? He said no, that I should be good for the next 15 to 20 years, depending on my genetics, lifestyle, and other things. A quick note on what are the causes of hair loss. So number one is genetics. Your hair begins to lose based on the mother side of your family. So your father could have a full head of hair like mine, but my mother's father lost his hair at a very early age, and that got passed down to me. So number one is genetics. Number two is your diet. So if you're eating a lot of processed food, a lot of salt, a lot of sugar, then your hair is going to likely thin at an earlier age. Three is taking in any kinds of substances. So if you drink a lot or you smoke a lot or do those kinds of things, then your body's going to naturally build up toxins and it's going to be really hard for your hair to grow. Number four is your environment. So depending on what kind of environment you live in, naturally it's going to affect your hair. Then lastly, five, any kind of chemicals that you use on your hair. So you want to make sure that you're using 100% natural organic products, whether it's gel or whether it's hairspray or any kind of hair products. You want to make sure that they're 100% natural and organic. Now let's go into the why of why I chose to go ahead with a hair transplant. So number one is when I first met Dr. Niraj Goenka, he actually had gotten it done himself. And when he lifted up his surgeon cap and I saw the hair that he had, I thought, if my hair could look anything remotely like his, sign me up. Secondly, and this is something that I had to really confront within myself in terms of just honesty. If price was not a barrier, and I had two choices. One, carry on with the look that I had, which was clean shaven, and I would literally shave my head every 2 to 3 days so this way it looked really clean. Or secondly, just have an opportunity to regrow my hair back the way that it was. Which one would I choose? And honestly, I would definitely, as you can tell, have chosen the latter. Secondly, I also noticed that I would often be the only guy in the room with a hat on, whether it's indoors or outdoors or regardless of what it was, especially during those days where I forgot to shave my head. And so hair would be growing in all these different places on the side, and just the way that I looked on the outside didn't quite match how I felt on the inside. I honestly feel like I'm getting younger and younger every day, and now I can really understand when people say, "Hey, I don't, how I look on the outside doesn't match how I look on the inside." And if there were tools and resources to be able to, create that alignment, why not? The third reason why I chose to get a hair transplant is that, again, this is just me being honest with myself. I did feel a little self-conscious, sometimes being like the only bald guy in the room, or did feel a little self-conscious trying to cover up areas, again, especially if I was not able to regularly cleanly shave. And so finally, after many conversations with my family who are incredibly, incredibly supportive, I thought, if I'm able to invest in this process and also heal quickly, as well as regrow my own hair back, why the hell not? And so that's why I went ahead and agreed to uh, complete the process. Well, brothers, that just about wraps up my hair transplant journey. If you found this video at all informative and helpful, please hit that like button and that bell notification for further and future men's health and wellness content. Remember, change your state, change your results, change your life. Peace and love.